Welcome back for another Gamebug video. This time it's a review of The Last of Us 2. Got here Zorbz and our very special guest, Ignis.
Hello everyone. Hello Zorbz.
What a lame first introduction. So as you might have seen, he's been writing a couple of reviews for us, and this is his voice. We didn't want to put him on camera because, we didn't want to scare everyone away. So let's get right into this review. So the reason we're doing this two people is because I have a very different opinion on the game as a whole compared to Mr. Ignatius here. I don't even know what it stands for, but so we're gonna have two reviews, I guess, in one. Because this game is very what's the word for it? Divisive? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is the way to go, instead of me just glorifying everything. So let's jump into the concept/story. Concept-wise, it's third-person action shooter, I guess. Third-person shooter, yeah. Stealth-based as well.
Yeah, stealth-based. A little bit more emphasis, I guess, on kind of play how you want. The first one was a lot more focused towards stealth. I think this one's a lot more focused towards, I guess, you should probably go stealth, but you can kind of run and gun if you want, kind of like go guns blazing. The options there, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, look, if anyone's played The Last of Us, and to be honest, about everyone in the world, I think, has played The Last of Us at this point. You know what you're getting into already. It's more or less a lot more of the same from a concept perspective, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with the concept there about it being a bit more open than the first one. Yeah, and we'll get into I guess the benefits of that and also the negatives of that. So story-wise, yeah, this is probably the main critique of the game.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll start off. I'm just going to say straight out, I hate Ellie as a character. So we're not going to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about Ellie as a character?
I think it's funny because we have two very differing opinions on the game as a whole, but I think from a character perspective, I think we actually agree on a lot of it. I greatly despise Ellie now. Actually, to be fair, I don't think I've ever really liked her.
Yeah, she was bratty.
Yeah, I think what I liked was the dynamic between Joel and Ellie in the first game. It was kind of how they played off of each other. That was really what kind of made it great, because Joel was kind of an asshole. Ellie was also kind of an asshole, but they kind of, Ellie softened him up a little bit. He wasn't so I guess, harsh towards the end, and Joel,
vice versa.
Yeah, exactly, the other way around. But without, I guess, Joel, because it's more or less just you playing as Ellie, she doesn't really have that person to bounce off, and so it's just kind of Ellie being an asshole the whole game without anyone to kind of play that father figure to her,
And I mean, so you've got the supporting character Dina, who you've seen in the trailer is basically her girlfriend. So it's not really a spoiler, but she just sort of goes along with everything that Ellie does. And I feel like, there's no contrast to her, because it's just like, I'm going to do this, and she's like, I'll do whatever you want to do. So every decision or action that Ellie does at the through the game, obviously we're not going to say towards the end, but most of the game, it's just like, wow, like you're just, I don't know. Anyway, so it's still engaging though. It's still, I've still wanted to see what would happen next. It's not just Ellie for the whole game. I think what everyone knows by now is you do play as another character called Abby, and you see her perspective of the story. That's, again, not a spoiler because, we're not saying what she does. But I feel like, can we say how we feel about her without that being a spoiler?
I guess on a very basic level.
Yeah, on a human level, when you're using Abby, out of the context of like what's going on, you just feel that, like, to me, I feel like she's a more fleshed out character. I feel like her voice acting's better.
Yeah.
Um, I just feel like she's got more heart. She's not so one dimensional.
Yeah, and I kind of get where they were going at with Ellie, because I guess due to being around Joel so much in the first game and having grown up in this world, she is very cold, and I guess that kind of makes sense for her to be a little, I guess, less emotional, less fleshed out as a character, things like that.
It makes sense in this environment too. You shouldn't be emotional in a post-apocalyptic zombie take what you can get environment. So
Yeah, correct. It's very different though, because I mean, Ellie in the first game had a lot of that sense of like childish wonder. Like
yeah,
there are
what's
always,
this? And
yeah, there are always points in the game she'd be like, "Oh, whoa, that's so cool!" Like whatever it is, right? But there isn't really any of that in this game. Like she's grown up,
yeah,
and that's kind of gone. And Abby, while she also doesn't really have that, she has, I guess, the benefit of not having that first game behind her. That they have introduced her as a character. This is how she is. We're going to build on her as a character, and I guess there's no real expectations behind that.
I think she's more mature as well.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't really know how much older or how old she really is, to be honest, compared to Ellie. But yeah, she's definitely more mature, more grounded. But despite the characters and how we feel about them, I think the story was engaging from start to finish. It did drag in sections, but that I feel is due to gameplay. And I believe you were saying there was a lot of gameplay with less cutscenes in this one, so the story didn't really have how would you say it? Like it didn't flow as nicely as the first one because there was just too many big chunks of gameplay.
Yeah, I had a really big problem in terms of pacing and padding of content in the game. I felt like there was huge chunks of you playing the game and then very short bursts of the story. And the story was great, but there were almost times where I forgot what happened, when I got to the next cutscene. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that's why I was going here. Just because, you might have a 3-5 minute cutscene interaction between Ellie and Dina, and then you'll go on a 2-3-4 hour, stint of gameplay, and then you'll get another 3-5 minutes with another character, and then it's another 4 hours. And I feel like the first game handled that a lot better. I
Yeah.
feel like the first game was a lot shorter. So the story's good, but I think the gameplay is almost a detriment to it in some way because of that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people complain that they want more gameplay, but if it's at the expense of a story, especially when it's a sequel, if it was the first game, you wouldn't really know any better. But when you've played something that felt like it flowed better, and then you come into a second one, and it doesn't feel the same in that way, it kind of takes away from it. So yeah, we'll get to the scores and what we think right at the end, but let's jump into the graphics section. I mean, for me, it's the best game I've ever seen, I guess, one of. I still haven't played Red Dead 2, which is blasphemous, but I can't compare it to that because I haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
But definitely on the PlayStation, considering we're playing most of the games on the X for graphical, fidelity and stuff like that. For a PlayStation 4 game, it looks absolutely incredible. And I love my water, and those water effects are pretty damn good.
Yeah.
The animations are awesome. Things like dirt on their face, cuts. Like sometimes you get a little cut and it'll stay on there, and it just adds to that realism. The environments look great. The only problem I have is there's not enough variety in the environments. I feel like the first game had a little bit more of that.
I think that they leaned a lot more into the green lushness.
Yeah.
I think that's partly because they wanted to showcase, oh my god, look how pretty we can make things look.
Mm.
But also I think a little bit because a criticism of the first game was how samey environments could be. And so they tried to change that by making the second game different, but then
Still samey.
the same.
Yeah. It was like, well, you got cityscapes, but now you've got more green.
Yeah, it's overgrowth in the cityscapes now.
I think mainly the problem is because it's so what's the word? It's so grim. Everything's grim. Like there's a lot of green and a lot of lush environments, but everything else is so grim. And you just like occasionally you'll go to, at the start of the game you're in the snow.
Yeah.
And that's so refreshing. Because then for the majority of the game, you're just in decrepit old buildings in the dark and just a lot of green.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll be in decrepit old buildings without the green, and sometimes you'll be in decrepit old buildings, with some infected in it, and sometimes you'll be in decrepit old buildings with some rain. But there's a lot of decrepit old buildings. There's a lot of green, and then there's a lot of just cityscape, which is a little disappointing, but they've definitely, I think, mixed up the scenery a little bit more as opposed to the first game. I absolutely, I don't think anyone can argue that this game is not one of the most outstanding, stellar looking games on console.
Yeah.
Ever made, arguably ever. It's a very, very, very pretty game.
It runs pretty good as well. I mean, there are some hiccups. There are some bits of slowdown, especially a lot of the times. Like there's scenes where you're on the beach and it just, as soon as the water crashes down, it just lags. So they're really cranking the visuals up as much as they can, but it's never really to the detriment of the game. Like you don't really notice it too much where you're just like, oh, this is unplayable. Not like Resident Evil. What was it? Resident Evil 3 when it first came out. That was bad.
Yeah, I remember that.
But yeah, visually, I think it's outstanding. I can't think of a bad thing to say about it visually. I don't know. I just want more environments, but it's an open world game. Like it's not like they can travel the whole country in one go.
The only thing that I can say, I guess, that is a nitpick from a graphics perspective is that facial animations sometimes were a little off. I don't know if that was just me, but there were times where characters would look in mirrors and stuff, and they'd make faces, and the way their faces contorted was just strange. like it didn't look right. And just the way characters' faces went from I guess a neutral stance to an angry or angry to sad, things like that. I don't know. It almost feels like a transition too quickly. It's almost that, it's almost human, but it's not. It's a little jarring at times, but I mean, that's a very minor nitpick. The animations on everything are incredible, so...
Yeah, I didn't notice that. All I noticed, though, is best kissing animation I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I've hated kissing in video games for as long as I can live, but that, I was like, oh, damn.
Actually,
right.
They got it. They got it right.
They got it.
You don't look at it and go, oh, that looks terrible anymore. So that was a plus.
Always the pioneers.
So now the other main thing is gameplay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with saying I think the game's too long. I don't think it needed to... All right. I think it could have been the same length, but it needed to be broken up more, like we've said earlier.
Yep.
There's too many chunks of gameplay where you're just like, God, I just want a breather, or I just want to just get out of this area and get to a cutscene or have something different happen. The open world aspect to it, I never liked it in Uncharted, and I don't like it here. I don't think these types of games need to have any open world type stuff. I do like having multiple ways to go about a mission, but I don't think it needs to be as big in scope as it is, because most of the time you're just looking for, collectibles and, resources, where it's not really necessary. Like, don't make a huge environment just to find like a bloody trading card or a couple of bullets, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of the, I guess, reason for having those big open areas for you to go and explore is because they need to. Resources are supposed to be scarce. I'm doing that in air quotations, but they kind of fix that by having these large areas for you to go and explore. So you open five drawers and there's nothing in three of them, but there's something in the other two, but you couldn't have five drawers in one house because that would be weird. So they have them spread out all over the place. I I agree with you. I don't think open world should be in a Naughty Dog game, period. I don't think that's forte. Their forte is storytelling. They're storytellers, they're world builders. It's what they do. It's what they should be leaning into, which I've always thought is very. I'm one of the people who've always felt that Uncharted as a series was superior to The Last of Us, purely because I felt, first off, that the gameplay was better, but second off, I felt that there was more story in Uncharted. It was more story focused than The Last of Us was, where I think The Last of Us's gameplay was a lot more focused around like exploring, finding resources, things like that,
Yeah.
resource management. I think the game is definitely way too long. I think the game could have been half as long as it was, and it would have been fine.
So it took me about 26 hours. How long did you finish it in?
I was done in 22.
Yeah, so we're past the 20 mark. I feel like it could have been 15 hours and it would have been the sweet spot.
I feel it honestly could have been 10. To be
Mm,
fair, Uncharted, like Naughty Dog's sweet spot is anywhere from the 8 to 12 mark. All of their games have been 8 to 12 hours for like the longest time, except for like Uncharted 1. So that's this spot. They know how to make just enough gameplay, just enough story to crank it out that long, but they just pushed it like way, way, way over. Like towards the end of The Last of Us 2, there were
it's
points
like,
where
come
I was
on.
like, I don't care anymore. Like, just hurry up.
Yeah, there was a point towards the end I was just like, just finish already.
Yeah.
And you don't want to feel like that when, the first game was so well done.
Mm.
But in terms of like the actual mechanics, everything that you felt from the first one is just as tight. Stealth is easy to pull off.
Mm.
I actually really like the stealth in it because I never feel forced to use it
Mm.
and I want to use it. Whereas in games where there's a stealth element, I always feel like I'm forced to use it and I can't go guns blazing. Whereas this, you can go guns blazing. Obviously, you got to manage your resources, but it just feels cool being able to, go up behind someone, slash their throat, quickly pull out a sniper, take that guy out, well, rifle, I should say, take a guy out. Then that attracts more people. You run around, there's just more free roaming around to fight how you want to fight.
Yeah, I feel like that was a really big emphasis on this one. You really do have the option to take any fight however you want, and I think there's this really cool thing about The Last of Us 2 where you're playing it, and at any point you can always be like, ah, damn it, like your plan messes up, and it messes up so often where you're just like, all right, so I'm gonna stealth kill that guy, I'm gonna pull out my pistol, I'm gonna headshot that dude over there, and I'm gonna get the bong and wait for the guy to come around the corner and then kill him, right? But then you might do that, and then the dog picks up your scent, and you're like, oh no, and now your plan's out the window, and now all of a sudden you're in a firefight.
Yeah.
And that was something that never really happened in the first game. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of those moments of just like, you plan these things out meticulously, and sometimes it just doesn't go right. And I actually kind of like that, where there are situations where the game will just put you in situations where it's like, you're just not going to be able to stealth this. Like, there are so many enemies here, you're going to have to firefight somewhere, but you get to choose where that is.
Yeah, and you get to, go through buildings and go through different floors and really pick the best spots to take out enemies. You're not sort of funneled into one area to do that. I also like... well, I'm trying to think of major comparisons to the first. I think in this one there is a heavier emphasis on humans than there are infected that you're fighting, and I feel like there is a big difference. When
Mm.
I was fighting humans, I never felt anxious. Because every time I go into an environment and I hear those clickers and I hear infected people moaning, I'm always I always know I got to take a bit of extra care
Yeah.
because some of those enemies can just take you out in one hit.
Mm.
Um, and whereas the humans, you can sort of get away with taking a lot more damage. So I felt like it was a nice balance of the humans. You could do stealth, but I felt like those were the times where you'd want to go guns blazing, and then with the sort of infected areas, I'd want to really go stealth and really take my time with that. And
Mm.
I don't like it. Like I don't like anxiety building times, but I mean that's it does it well. Because I guarantee that's the effect they want. They want you to feel anxious and on your toes when you get into those areas.
It's weird because I was not nearly as afraid of infected in the second game as I was in the first, and I think that may partially be due to, I guess, the removal of shivs,
Mm.
not having, I guess, limited number of kills for infected. I think,
It's definitely easier.
yeah, it's definitely way easier. I think that having, I guess, the first game of being exposed to clickers and then having the second game come out, I think that in and of itself makes it by nature just a little less scary. And I think that the standard infected just aren't really that intimidating at all. They're kind of just like
Mm.
fodder. They're fodder for the clickers and stuff. And I get that the infected are supposed to be like the guys who alert the clickers where you are, and then the clickers come and kill you. But you also have a much bigger arsenal in this game to kill things with, and
Yeah.
it's like you have so many weapons by the end of it. Even if
Yeah.
you don't always have ammo available for all of them, you always have options to kill them.
I think would have been cooler would be have more interactions of clickers and infected and humans at the same time. There's not that many times where they're both there.
Which is funny because I remember when we were watching the state of play for Last of Us 2, Neil Druckmann made this really big point of saying, oh, yeah, you can always make it so, you can have infected versus humans. And then in the demo, they showed that off. And we are like, oh, wow, that's crazy. You can actually only really do that like once or twice in the game.
Two,
There
three
aren't really
times, yeah.
that many options, which is weird. I thought it would be a much bigger part of the game, but it's not.
Yeah, they're very sectioned off. You're either fighting one or the other, and occasionally there'll be both. And sometimes when it's both, they'll be in the same building, but again sectioned off in different rooms so that they don't really interact with anyone. But yeah, in terms of um, collectibles and just exploring and stuff, um, the open world side of it does sort of detract a bit.
Yeah.
But there is the benefit of having many ways of tackling a firefight. So there's pros and cons around that as well. Is there anything else you think we can add about gameplay, or should we move on?
The only other thing that I would really point out is that I really, really, really hated the recoil mechanic of when you get shot. I really hated that. Like attempting to shoot, like when you get in a gunfight with another human, if you get shot, like your gun jumps around when you get shot, super frustrating. Enemies are deadly accurate. And if they shoot you first, it's really hard for you to you have to
You get knocked
re-aim.
onto your butt.
Yeah. Oh man, I really, really didn't like that. But I mean, gameplay honestly is what I feel was the weakest part of the first Last of Us as well. I feel it's always been the Last of Us weakest point. But it's definitely much improved. But I think it's actually probably the weakest part of this game as well, especially with how long it is.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the gameplay, but it just dragged on. It was too long. Finding the same boring resources over and over, and then the upgrades. Like, you can't choose what upgrades you want. you have to do them
Go
in
through
order.
the tree. Yeah,
You
you
have
go
to
through the
specifically do them in order, and that
tree.
sucks.
Oh, man.
There's this crap that you don't need that you have to waste your ammo, your upgrade points on. That's stupid.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. I totally forgot about that. But just having that tree and looking at that fourth one down, where it's like, oh, you get 50% more health with your bandages, and you're like, oh my god, I want that. And then you look at the other perks you get, where you walk a little bit faster when you're listening to people, and you can
craft 2 more extra bombs that you never use.
Yeah, correct. And it's like, I don't want any of that. I just want to be able to heal faster.
Yeah.
It was, that part really bothered me too, especially because a lot of the upgrades didn't really feel that powerful. Like, there was some where you looked at it like, oh my god, that's so good. Like healing more, things like that, suppressors.
Yeah, suppress is a good one, yeah.
Yeah, like there are things where you're like, this is a must-have. And then you look at the rest of the tree and you're like, oh god,
I need to waste all my points just to get to this.
Yeah, correct.
So let's move on to the sound. I think voice acting overall is fantastic.
Top notch, yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
What's Abby's actress name again?
Oh,
Is it
my
Laura
favorite,
Bailey?
Laura Bailey. Oh.
Yeah, she just nails it.
Yeah, she's incredible. She always is.
Even the other random supporting cast like Jesse, Owen, like all of them, all acted really well. I can't really think of a character that I thought sucked.
No,
voice acting wise.
No. But then again, that's always been part of, I guess, what I was talking about earlier, is that is Naughty Dog's forte. It's storytelling, and a big part of storytelling nowadays is your voice cast, and they've always been fantastic at that. Ashley Johnson does a fantastic job as Ellie. She was just as good in the second game as the first game, even though I may not have liked the character that much. I can't deny that she did a fantastic job.
Yeah, as much as I was saying I hate Ellie, and I think I even said, like, it's not her voice acting sucks. She's just having to play a bratty asshole person that I don't like. Yeah, but she does it well, because if it makes me have that emotion and that feeling to it, then she's doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone is, they do a real fantastic job. The standout for me, trying not to be super biased and just say Laura Bailey, but it's probably Laura Bailey.
Yeah.
She's got, I think, one of the widest ranges. She's someone who goes very much from, not overly happy, but she goes from happy, sad, angry, and kind of fluctuates between all of her emotions, whereas Ellie is a lot more one emotion sort of thing.
I think as well Troy Baker just nails it every time.
It's Troy Baker, man.
There's no way he can sing in the voice of Joel as well as just talking. So
yeah, he's one of the greatest. I mean,
and the emotions, like when he puts on the sad voice, you're just like, oh, my heart.
Yeah, you feel like he's disappointed in you. And you're like, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
But even when he's disappointed in the game, you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
So sound is fantastic. Music, I don't know. I can't really remember much music. It's a lot more atmosphere and just sort of sound effects.
Yeah, it is. I will say that I guess one of the only pieces of sound that we really get are the stripped back guitar pieces that Ellie plays.
They're really cool.
They're really cool. They're all, as far as I know, they're all stripped back versions of existing songs. But the funny part is they don't know that they're existing songs. They're just like, oh yeah, I remember the song because it's one that Joel taught me, and like she doesn't know the name of the song. I'm like, oh, I know that song.
Yeah.
But I think those are really, really, really well done. Well recorded. I'm big fan of that. But no, there isn't actually a lot of music in this game.
You can even go on YouTube and people are using the guitar in the practice mode and making actual songs out of it. I've seen Metallica. I've seen not Green Day. There was a Metallica one. There was what was the other one? I don't know. Anyway, there's a couple. There was at least 5 or 6 that I saw. Some guys just going around learning songs on the game's guitar. And it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But yeah, in terms of like enemies like screaming, like it's still like, oh, and the clickers noise, and even the gunfire sounds just so beefy. Like when you blast someone with a shotgun and their screams, like, oh God, when you kill someone, And then the other cool thing is when you kill someone and they're like, "Oh my god, Robert," and
Yeah.
the AI interacts with the other AI. It's not just like, "Oh, we found a body." Sometimes they'll say that, but a lot of the times they're like, "Oh my god," when you shoot their dog, or
Yeah.
like you really feel like, "Holy shit, I just killed someone's friend or family member." Like
Yeah.
it's pretty uncomfortable at times, which is really really well done.
Yeah, it was it was really uncomfortable for me at first actually when I mean I got desensitized to it towards the end, and maybe that's kind of what they were going for, but at the start where they're just like, "Oh my god, no, Karen, she's dead." I was like, "Ooh, like
I
damn."
guess that does make sense. Like with Ellie, like she is desensitized to it because she's done it so much. So it
Yeah.
makes sense why she's just so dead inside.
Yeah. And I guess like big shout out on like probably the most uncomfortable thing in the game. You said it earlier, but specifically stealth killing people.
Ugh,
Stealth killing humans, just listening to them slowly like bleed out
gurgle
and gurgle and drown in their own blood. It's like it's uncomfortable.
yeah,
Um
especially in cutscenes.
oh god. Super uncomfortable. But no, I mean from a sound perspective, I think the humans, even from a voice acting perspective, like all the humans are great. Like they all sound like they're believable people, and they all sound like they get genuinely pissed when you kill their friends. Like, I'm gonna find her and kill her, and it's just like I'd be pissed off too if my friend just died. I think the infected is actually the weaker part from a sound perspective.
They still freak me out. They screams and shit.
Yeah, but I think compared to my interactions with humans,
Yeah, because humans have emotions. These
yeah,
things are just screaming and
yeah, like
yeah.
the most you get is the new infected just been like, "Ooh."
Yeah. Yeah, they're always crying, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's weird, but no, it sounds fantastic as always.
So this is the probably the most so awesomeness categories. We always pick something that the game does really well, like it stands out from the bunch. It really highlights something, and it doesn't have to be always a positive. It can be highlighting a positive or a negative. Now, for me, the highlight in the awesomeness category is not a positive. The highlight is I don't want to play it again. The replayability there it's not there for me. The platinum is enticing, that platinum trophy, because it's not that hard to do.
Yeah,
And you look at it and you go, I could easily do this.
yeah.
But I tried and I can't. I don't want to play this game again. Maybe in a couple of years, but I don't want to jump straight back into it after. Resident Evil 3, for example, I could play that over and over. But something like this, I need a breather. Like it's too long. I can't go through this again.
Yeah, I think it's not just that. I think it's also the game's just a lot. Like emotionally, it's a very taxing game. Very similar to the first one, where you get to the end of it and you almost feel drained from playing it because of just so much emotionally happening all the time.
Yeah, it's so intense.
Yeah, it's a very intense game to play, especially for long periods of time. But I was actually very similar to that in the first game as well. I finished the first game, and a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to play this again." I was just like, "I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
I don't. This is a complete package, start to finish. I don't need to play it again. Like, it's not a game I need to play again." And I feel very much the same with The Last of Us 2.
So do you feel like there's any like redeeming positive for this awesomeness category for you? Like, is there something you're like, whoa, this is absolutely amazing? And yeah.
Not really, to be honest.
I don't think so either.
I don't think there's anything that blew me out of the water, which is kind of crazy to say, but it's almost what I've come to expect from Naughty Dog. Like I've gone and played this, and I've been like, this is another Naughty Dog title. It's great. It's up to par with their other products, but there's nothing here that's really pushing the boundaries at all. Yeah, no, I don't really have anything from an awesomeness perspective apart from, I guess, Laura Bailey. Yay. But no, I feel that as a package, it's good.
Okay. All right, so we're back at the part now where we give the scores. Okay, you want to go first? So we're going to give individual scores ourselves. You go through your whole list of them.
Yeah, okay. So, I gave story 4. I guess just very briefly, there is some plot points that upset quite a few people. I didn't have as many problems with them as other people did. I think the story is a little weaker than it was in The Last of Us 2, which is kind of why I gave it the 4. Graphics is a 5. I don't think anyone can say graphics is not a 5. It looks incredible. Animations are incredible. Everything is incredible. Gameplay for me was a 3. I stated that it's the weakest part of The Last of Us, and I'm sticking to that. Even Uncharted, for example, I'd give like a 4. I think it's weaker than that. Sound, I'm also giving like a 4 to a 4.5. I'm going to settle on a 4.5, I think. It's a little weird to comment on a game but not really talk about a soundtrack because it doesn't really have one. But I think for the most part, sound is more or less flawless, and awesomeness, I guess, is a 3. There wasn't really anything that really blew me away here, as I said, but yeah.
All right, so we'll figure out whatever the average of that is. You can do it yourselves, guys, listening, because I'm just going to put up my score in the end on the actual article because I'm the one uploading it. But let me have a look. What did I put down my score? So I wrote it down so I don't forget. Story, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I guess we're exactly the same. I didn't have the complaints that other people did about the story. I thought it was really good. I just wish it was. I don't know. I just wish there was. Yeah, I can't say without spoiling it.
Yeah.
I really can't.
I know what you mean.
I'm just gonna say I like the second half of the game's story better than I did the first half.
Controversial opinion, but you know.
Graphics, I gave it a 5 again, like same as you. It's unreal. It's one of the best looking games I've ever seen. Gameplay, I gave it a 4 because I still enjoy the gameplay. I just think it doesn't get a 5 because it was just literally too long. So I just think that was a detriment to the gameplay itself. Sound, I gave it a 5. The music's great. The voice acting is just unreal. The sound effects are all amazing. Nothing I can fault it for. Awesomeness, 2.5. Like, it's all right. It's not a 5. It's not a 4. It's mediocre. There's no real hook to go back. Especially once you got that platinum trophy, that's it. There's no, what we didn't touch on is there's no even real reason to play on harder difficulties. You can finish it on the easiest difficulty and get the gold trophy, the same as if you finished it on the hardest difficulty, which is very strange. Normally, you tie those into difficulties so people will play it more, but I don't know. There just wasn't there.
And if they don't give you that, normally they give you another reward instead. Like, it might be like, oh, the difficulty, it's all tied to the gold or whatever. But if you beat on the hardest difficulty, like I always think of Dead Space 2, for example. If you beat that on the hardest difficulty, you get the finger gun, where you pretty much destroy like everything in one shot, right? That they give you a reward for beating on the hardest difficulty, and it's just not here in this. So.
Yeah. So there's no real reason to play once you've finished it because there's no perks of beating it on harder difficulties. So final thoughts.
Game's good. I think the first one was better, but the first one also wasn't, the masterpiece for me that a lot of other people seem to think, and that's totally fine. I understand that. I totally get that too. It's very much more of what I expected from Naughty Dog, which is weird saying it in such a nonchalant way because Naughty Dog is, at the top 1% of, devs and producers on the market, and they produce nothing but top tier stuff, but it's just more top tier stuff from Naughty Dog.
But let's be honest, it's only top tier for you since the PS3. They've been top tier for me since the PS1.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that.
Gives me shit about Jack and Daxter all the time.
And I also don't think Crash is actually that good either. But
Blasphemous.
yeah, I know. But yeah, it's a great game, and I think it's one of those games that even if you disagree with it, and even if you don't like what you've heard about it, it's still a game that you have to try and you have to experience.
Especially if you played the first one. If you played the first one and you didn't like it, don't play this. If you enjoyed the first one, you have to play it. You need to know what happens in the story. If you really don't want to play it, be happy with the story how it ended, but it ended on such a cliffhanger, you kind of need to know.
Yeah, you want to know what happened.
I don't think any of the criticisms that I've seen are valid. They're all stupid things, and I'm just going to say, like, who cares if one of the characters is supposed to be trans or if the relationships are lesbian related? Like, it has nothing to do with the game itself. That's personal choice of what they did in the story. It's their story. If you want to write a different story, make it your own. Like, what the fuck?
And I can also guarantee that story you write is like it's always funny.
Yeah, it's not going to be anywhere near as good as what they've written.
Oh, I could write a better story than this. I'm like, no, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You absolutely could not. And the other thing, just real quick, biggest pet peeve I have is people giving this game like ones and zeros and stuff and saying it's the worst game they've ever played.
And guarantee they've never played it.
The Last of Us 2 is the worst game you have ever played. You've played like 3 games in your life and they're all 10s.
Yeah.
Because there is no way in hell this game is the worst game to anyone.
I could think of 1,000 games that are a lot worse, but I actually really enjoy this game. I gave it, pretty good score. So I don't think it's perfect like some of the people have given the scores. I don't think it's a 10, and I definitely don't think it's a 1 or a 2. I don't even think it's a 5 or a 6. It's higher than that.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's a really well-made game, but it's just missing some charm of the first one for me. But still, it has moments in it that I'll always remember in that game.
Yep.
Some pretty gnarly moments. So that in itself deserves more than a 1. If there's a moment in that game where you're just like, holy shit, and you talk about it for years to come. So anyway, that's our review. It was very long-winded. That was us trying to rush through it. So imagine if we spent 3 hours talking about it, you would have tuned out 20 minutes ago. Of this 10-minute, of this half an hour video. Anyway, check out our website for the full version with the score and all that. And otherwise, just subscribe and like and all that stuff on YouTube. We don't really care that much. We want you to support us, but we're not going to pound it down your throat.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.